Hello, everyone, and welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast. Where we talk about passive investing, real estate, and all the money moves you can make while working your W2 so you can establish your financial freedom. Here to talk about the W2 journeys, your host and amigos, Nick Coulter and Xavier Marin. Nick, what's up, man? Who do we have on the podcast today?
So we are chatting with a good friend of yours and a business partner, Felipe Mejia. Felipe is a super active investor in a lot of different markets, a lot of different areas. He has an extremely large portfolio. And I will tell you, today he dropped a bomb on my head, and I think probably a lot of our listeners, but I'm taking away the line of credit and how you manipulate that to be the velocity of money. So basically implying you don't refinance and you don't start paying the bank immediately. You do a line of credit and you start repaying yourself so that you maintain that equity and you can continue to control it. And you only use it when you find a deal good enough to pay off that line of credit within that time frame that you borrowed it from. It was really cool. I think Felipe is a high energy guy. But also, I think the thing that I was really impressed with is his ability to kind of walk through these concepts and teach us a couple things, and hopefully our listeners as well.
He's probably one of the most authentic people you're going to meet, and his social media presence and Instagram is a reflection of that as well, too. So for those that are not following Felipe, you should definitely give him a follow. It's probably going to be the most authentic and raw information you're going to be getting, definitely for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to it.
All right, guys, welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast. Today's a very special day. We have a special guest with us today, Felipe Mejia. Welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing today?
What's up, Xavier? Man, what's up, Nick? It's nice to meet both of you guys. It's awesome. Well, I know you, Xavier, but meeting Nick, what's up, man?
Hey, man, it's good to see you. I've been stalking the IG, hearing about a lot about you from X. So I'm like glad virtually I get to kind of meet you a little bit until we can do it in person next time.
Oh, for sure, brother. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here, too. Excited that you guys got this podcast going. It's pretty cool. I was talking to Mark today out here on Instagram, or he's from Instagram, but he's here in Nashville, local. And I was like, man, these guys are doing this cool podcast because everyone talks about like financial freedom and like reaching these levels. And like, I remember talking to Xavier, and he's like, dude, I love Target. Like, I don't actually want to lead, but I do want to invest. And there's like no podcast out there for that. So the niche is pretty cool because not everyone wants to quit their job. Some people actually like what they do. And no one talks about that. So super excited that you guys are doing that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was one of those things I feel like it was definitely missing. And we're happy that we're able to get this kicked off, have some great interview people to jump on as well and share their story. But yeah, man, I would definitely want to dig into your story a little bit. So obviously, I know you very well. But for the listeners, they're either fairly new to investing or just full-time workers wanting to invest. If they haven't heard about you, Felipe, give them a little bit of a background about who you are and how you got started.
Sure. So my name is Felipe. I'm married. I have a 5-year-old, and I've been investing for the last 7 or 8 years, going on 8 years now. I started investing because I saw that real estate was able to hold my family together when my parents were going through a divorce. The home that we had basically was the leverage that the judge needed to keep our family together and not separate us because my mom could produce an income from house hacking our house. So the judge was like, as long as you can continue to pay the mortgage, then I'll keep you guys' family together. A lot of people talk about cash flow and return on investment and equity and all these things, but no one talks about like the statistics of kids who are growing up in the projects versus a home, broken families versus not. And that's huge in real estate, but no one talks about that because it's not sexy. But for me, that was kind of like a lifesaver that we needed to keep our family together. So knowing that is kind of one of the main reasons that I still invest today. I was like, if mom could do it with one house, keep a family together, what can I do with now I'm at 78 units or 79 units? Like, what can I do? What major impact can I do? So for me, that was super, super powerful. And then from there, I just kept investing. Started off with just a mobile home that my mom gave me her equity stake in, which is half. I came up with the other half, purchased it, house hacked my way through college in that mobile home, ended up selling the mobile home for a down payment for a single family and never looked back.
So Felipe, your mom did it out of necessity, but was it something that you guys had been exposed to at all before, or your parents, or was it just like, oh, I need to do this to be able to keep my family in one place?
So I don't remember. I think I haven't asked my mom in a while the exact answer to that question, but I know that it correlates, if you will, right? Like if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have been able to keep the family together. So whether we did it prior to that, I don't remember anymore, but I do know that that was the reason we were able to stay together.
I mean, that's interesting because I think the necessity there is unique, but it sounds like that framed your mind to then look to do what you wanted to do going forward. So how much time was in between that instance of the divorce and then the renting out of the basement and then the mobile home purchase?
Yeah, so that happened when I was around 12. And then from there, the mobile home was when I was graduating high school. Obviously graduated high school. So 6 years, about 6 years of renting the basement out. So basically what happened was, okay, so think about it this way for your listeners. When my parents were getting divorced, we felt the waters rise up, right? And we could like barely stay afloat. But that mortgage payment is your most expensive, typically your most expensive expense monthly. So what my mom did by releasing that pressure, she dropped the waters more to our chest. We could still feel the pressure of money, but we could now sustain and breathe, right? So we couldn't go out to eat restaurants and stuff, but we had food at home. So I would never say that we were poor, but the only reason we weren't was because we house hacked our basement. And that allowed us to kind of like, we didn't have a mortgage payment anymore every month. And sure, we were uncomfortable because there was people living in our basement, which was weird, but it was what we had to do to survive.
Yeah, no, I feel you on the uncomfortability portion of it. And it's interesting you say that because X and I were just having a conversation. I was like off the rails because I just bought a house in San Diego. It's a duplex. We're in a studio, we're renting out the front, and we weren't getting like the return immediately on Airbnb in the first 5 days. And I'm looking at this massive mortgage payment. And I'm like, dude, if I don't rent this out at the numbers that I projected, I'm gonna have to end up paying like 4 or 5 grand out of pocket. And I'm freaking out. And then I like did all the math and everything's gonna work out fine. But I'm also realizing talking to X, that's what most Americans do is they have 50 to 60% of their income going straight to their mortgage payment every single month. And that kind of financial pressure weighs super heavy.
Yep, exactly right. I think eliminating that is probably, in my opinion, everyone's first step. Either buy a rental to eliminate that, house hack to eliminate that, but that mortgage payment, figure out a way to eliminate that. That'll really trajectory you, I guess is the word, towards more investing.
Yeah. So Felipe, you get, this mobile home park from your mom in high school. What happens after? Did you end up going to school? Did you get a degree? Like, kind of what does that look like? Because I feel like sometimes that is typically the trajectory that people say that they have to go. Was that something that was instilled in you as well growing up? It's like, hey, you have to go to a 4-year college to get your degree.
Yeah, so like in any community, not just the Latino community, but like education is important to get ahead. And we're kind of instilled like that's the only way to get ahead is by being educated. So obviously, to not, I don't want to say to make my mom happy. I wanted to go to college too. Am I using my degree? No. Am I using the experiences and the things I learned? Yes. So I'm glad I went. I wouldn't go again if like I had the choice. But it was definitely a great experience that is attributed to my success now. And it made my mom happy, right? So like there's not a price tag on that. Interestingly enough, my mom paid for my college cash, cleaning houses. So how did she do it? I don't know, but she did a huge sacrifice to do that. So that's really helped me kind of get to that next level just with education and see that there's other options out there than just working on the construction site or okay, this is the way that I put it for people. So if your listeners are listening, like listen to this part and take some notes. When my parents came to this country to survive, it was a survival mechanism for them to come to this country in 1987 just to get out of Mexico, to have a job, to survive. For me, I wasn't just going to go that far, right? My mom came to this country to survive. I needed to now thrive, which was that next step for me. So I couldn't just go get a job and just, do those things. I had to do more. But where I messed up is I left a job to invest in real estate versus keeping a job to invest in real estate. So I read all the books and it was like, oh, get financially independent, quit your job, yada, yada, yada. I was like, oh, cool. I want that. I'll quit my job. And then I wasn't bankable for 2 years. So like, that's why I'm glad you're doing this podcast. You guys should write a book because that's not told anywhere. It's like reach financial independence, quit your job, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, like keep your job, maximize the 10 loans that you can, like until your real estate success overcomes the income that you're making, then make that financial decision, but not a moment before.
Well, I think a lot of people want to jump the gun because it's like the cool, sexy thing to do, and it's everybody's talking about on podcasts that they covered
Correct.
their income and quit. But I think honestly, the financial stress that you put yourself under when you put yourself in that position, like Scott said it great in his book, invest from the position of financial strength. If you're getting qualified for these loans, it's because they're underwriting you at a normal institution. Likely, you're going to be able to pay those loans even if everything went wrong. And I would rather do that and maybe take it a little bit slower than, do it faster and then lose a little bit more of my hair and probably shave some years off my life due to stress. Because it's just that's what's going to happen. You're going to freak out. I mean, money pressure is like no other pressure. I'm telling you.
And it's a two-edged sword there too, Nick. I would also challenge people not to stay comfortable though. So, for example, I love Xavier, and I'll talk shit about him to his face, but talk highly about him to other people. But like for example, I think Xavier is comfortable. This is why he hasn't invested more, because he doesn't have to. His AC is on, his refrigerator is full. He's got a beautiful girlfriend, a dog, a view. I mean, look at him. He's a handsome, gorgeous guy, right? Tall, brown. Are you kidding me? If I was single, no. But what I'm saying is like keeping a W-2 is a two-edged sword, because Xavier makes over six figures, but he's also comfortable. Why would he want to invest in a property that's going to be more work, more headache, and pump out $500 a month, right? But there's also more avenues. So there's cash flow appreciation, loan pay down, equity, taxes, cost segregation. That list can go on. So there's also that two-edged sword of like, don't wake up 10 years later still at your W-2 job. So yes, stay there, but remember daily, why are you grinding? Why are you investing? Why are you looking? Because one day you do want to be, on the beach in Bora Bora naked, drinking a Corona, right? You don't want to be there forever either. So there's a fine line, in my opinion, between like investing, quitting your job, and like, what are your goals, your whys, and what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think also too is finding the right balance of what you're going after. Because if you put yourself in a position where you just go ahead and try to acquire everything that comes across from you, like that's probably not the best route to go as well, right? So to your point, kind of the position that I'm at, I, I'm in a luxurious position to be picky. Like maybe I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, but it's because I don't necessarily have to, right? I think
Right.
in the past, 10 years, I've put myself in the position to be able to choose what I want to go after versus being in a position where it's like, man, I have to just take whatever's out there, which ultimately
I
in the
don't
long
have
term.
that luxury. And I apologize for cutting you off, but you're absolutely right. Your listeners need to rewind that 30 seconds to listen to that again. I didn't have that luxury. I had to take the shit and make it pretty. Xavier, all of his properties are amazing. Look at his portfolio. But go ahead, Xavier. Sorry.
No, and you're absolutely, but that happened though with being intentional with what I was going after, right? And that's what I want to dig into a little bit more from your side is, so you mentioned that you left your well, because you had a W-2, you had a full-time job, you invest, and then you left to invest in real estate. Like what made you want to make that jump?
So I had a cush job. I mean, I had an education. I'm bilingual. I grew up in the city that I'm in. I have connections here. I was human resources at a company called Aegis Science Corporation, making $60,000 a year. I was cush, and I was going to keep going up the ladder. Um, Sorry, my phone just went off. So I was cush, but like you said, so I think the wrong education is why I quit, because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. Invest in real estate, quit your job, go all in. And luckily that went okay for me, but it could have gone really, really bad. So for me, luckily I quit and I didn't have a plan B. I burned the boats. I was going to go all in on real estate. I was out there Ubering, Lyft, again, car, right? I was cleaning construction sites, whatever. I had while the day before I had a cush job because I thought I had to do that to go into real estate. Now, luckily it panned out for me, but I know plenty of people that it hasn't, and they had to go back to work. Where I should have just stayed at my job, bought one or two, one or two good rentals that year, that high cash flow or high goals that I had, and then worked up the chain to $90,000, $120,000, $150,000 a year, kept investing strategically and smart for long-term financial wealth. I think I would definitely be in a better position than I am today. I would have got better properties, better loans. I would say 70% of my portfolio does amazing, and 30% of it, maybe 25, doesn't do as well, but I still have to maintain it because I don't want to lose money neither or do anything. So like that takes up most of my time. Whereas what Xavier is saying, where he invests in 1, 2, 3 rentals a year, but every one of them is crushing it. I mean, he's got over 6 figures in equity in the cabins that we have. His property that he has with me in Nashville does over $1,000 cash flow a month. Like he's more strategic, and he has that because he doesn't have the financial strain that maybe I did when I first started. So having a W-2 job is I would tell people stay there until you literally mentally and physically can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I think to go back to your earlier point, I wrote it down. It's super important to have a group that's going to challenge you because, like, Felipe, to your point, man, like I was super comfortable because I couldn't get a house hack, quote unquote, in 2021, just because the numbers weren't making sense on any deals that I could find. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to save, and then we're going to go after this big duplex. After this, now I got to have a group around me that's going to hold me accountable to continue to invest because I have a great paying job. I should be able to house hack, live for free in a beautiful city, have my other house that's going to be cash flowing now. It's so easy for me to just stop right here and chill and not do anything. But I'm hoping to surround myself with folks like you, folks like X, different investors to create that environment to keep pushing me forward, because I think that is another thing that you can do to force yourself to continue to accelerate even while keeping the W-2, because people, your boss is going to hold you accountable at your job. At least ideally they will. You or friends and family in the real estate investing space, I think, can hold you accountable to continuing to push forward. And a lot of people screw that up because they don't put themselves into a mastermind or into an accountability group because they're afraid of the price, the cost, or whatever. But I think that's the value of it, is that they're going to hold you accountable to continue to accelerate your growth.
I agree. I agree. I think having a coach and a mentor is really, really important. It's a way to skip the line. It's a way to, it's like a fast pass at Disney World. Now, finding the right coach and the right mentor is the harder part, in my opinion. But it's kind of like real estate. You got to dive in, you got to do it, you got to invest in yourself. And when you're talking about a W-2 job, I've run into so many people where I ask them, like, what's your salary? And they'll say $80,000 a year. I'm like, awesome. So your boss is willing to invest $80,000 in you, but you're not willing to spend $5,000 on a mastermind. So you're telling me your boss believes more in you than you can believe in yourself. It's like, if your salary is a certain amount invested in you, that company believes in you, fill in the blank amount. How are you not spending 10% of that on yourself? There's a book out there called The Richest Man in Babylon, where he talks about, like, pay yourself first and, like, educate yourself, pay yourself, invest in yourself. Like, you are first, right? I didn't know this, but LeBron James spends $1 million a year on his body, like cryotherapies, testosterones, just everything that he does, because he first invests in himself. Dude's like 40 something years old, banging on 20-year-old. Boom, right? Like, that doesn't come by accident, and that's not genetics. I'm not going to take anything away from the guy. He works hard, but he also invests a large amount of money in himself. And I think if more people did that, W-2 or not, there would be more success.
Well, it's funny because you say that, because like Warren Buffett is like arguably the best investor, right, ever. And his thing is, and he said it in a bunch of different, talks and everything that he's had, his number one investment was this, I think it was like a $500 communications course that he took
Oh yeah,
on
I remember
himself.
hearing this.
Yeah. And so he could be able to relate back to everybody else, all these investments and everything. He's like, that $500 turned into billions because he was able to communicate effectively going forward. And we've talked to a bunch of people now on the podcast, and it seems like the higher earners that are being more successful are spending a little bit more time and money on themselves, whether that be the gym, whether that be wellness, or just even the fact that you're going to invest in your future. I mean, I think that's critically important. And I didn't do that for a long time. I think that's one of my regrets, is because I was like, I remember I got invited to the David Green mastermind, X and I, at the same time. And I was like, no, fuck that, dude. I can't afford it. I'm just like small time house hacker in Redlands. There's no way. And he joined. And then now I'm like, fuck you, man. You have all these houses and I don't have anything. He's like, well, I made this connection. I talked to this person, blah, 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 blah. And then hooking up with you, he was able to land a couple properties like back to back after he bought his first house hack. So I'm like looking back at my time, like, damn, the last 2.5 years, I could have done something differently.
Yeah, and before I even joined Mastermind, like, Felipe was the first person I reached out to. So this is where Felipe, I think, I remember Felipe, and not to get all the way back, but like, you're what now, 30,000 plus followers on Instagram, if not more.
Me?
And yeah.
Whoa.
I'll
72,000.
say it's higher than that, bro. I
Okay,
checked the other day.
damn. So I haven't checked that. Okay.
Whoa.
So I remember following Felipe when it was 72 followers on Instagram. No, I'm just kidding. But I remember reaching out to him because when I was hearing on the podcast about his story, I was like, man, there's a Latino crushing it right now, like that background that I can relate to. I want to see how he's doing it. I reached out to him, and he was providing you're providing coaching lessons, and you're like, yeah, for 30 minutes, $20, like you can go ahead and set up some time to call. I was like, oh man, $20? Like, do I really want to spend that money? I remember thinking about that because I'm just like, I don't like, okay, I know about you. I'm not sure this is gonna really pan out. Could you have imagined if I never picked up the phone because I didn't want to spend $20, Felipe? Like
You
we
have a
wouldn't.
$500,000, $500,000 cabin in Gatlinburg that just costs like for like 50 G's or more. You have a cash flow with over $1,000 on it. I mean, yeah, it's
Like,
funny because we're all decisions away, just a
yeah,
couple decisions.
like we have over $1 million worth of real estate together. Like that
Easy
would have been all out the window just because I was thinking about not spending $20 on myself for 30 minutes.
on yourself, bro. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to invest $20 in Felipe. You don't need your $20, dude. I promise you, I don't. You need your $20. And that's how people need to look at it. You're not investing in me, you're investing in yourself. Just FYI, I'm like close to $5,000 a day now. So you got to steal back then. You got to steal back then. And it's interesting because a lot of people won't invest in themselves. Like they won't. That $20 investment that you made in yourself, now you can pick up the phone and call me anytime, right? Like a lot of people do not have that sort of access. And you can pick up the phone, we talk, we banter. You know me behind the scenes, like you know who I really, really am. And like that $20 that you invested in yourself has now bajillionified how many times over, right? So I tell people all the time, like you're going to kiss some frogs, but you're definitely going to get in the right position. If you invest in yourself, you will always come out up front. An investment in yourself will never give you a negative return, in my opinion.
I think there's like some sort of like sick, twisted ego that's wrapped up into that. A lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to go to so and so's class or so and so's thing because I can do it myself and I can do it either better than them or deep down that they think that they can do it themselves and do it the best way possible. And it's like, I think that's just such a limiting belief. You know, if you let that get in front of you, you're not going to be able to grow where you want to grow. And then you're going to look back to your point earlier. You're going to look back in 10 years and be like, well, I should have bought those houses and I should have done this. And it's
Yeah.
really sad, but I know a lot of investors that, have zero deals that have been like, well, I could have bought this duplex 10 years ago and it would have been cash flowing this much. But I didn't do it because
Yeah.
I was scared, or a termite report came back and it's like, I couldn't do it.
No, I hear you. And let's go ahead and spice this up. So I know let's go trigger warning this time. So earlier Xavier said Latino, and then you a minute ago said like that limiting beliefs, right? So let's take a left turn here. So for your listeners, get ready. This is where it's going to get good. Turn your volume up. Get ready because we're fixing to go into some trigger warning stuff. So it's interesting because I'm going to take this a little bit to the left. When Xavier said Latino and like mindset stuff, when I first started investing, guys, I looked for every excuse in the book why I couldn't invest in real estate. Couldn't get a loan. I didn't have a job. My credit score wasn't good. I didn't have money. I didn't have all these things. And I would go to the bank and I would ask for a loan, and the bank would be like, no, we can't give it to you. And I'd be like, why? And the first thing I wanted to do was blame the bank. It's because I'm Latino. It's because this. It's because like every crutch in the book that I could think of, I would throw at them. So when someone's like, oh, you're a Latino investor, I'm like, oh, I almost cringe on the inside because no, the fuck I'm not. I'm not a Latino. I'm an investor. I just happen to be Latino. I'm Mexican and proud, right? Like my blood is Mexican, but I'm born in the United States and I consider myself an American. I love this country. You know, I bleed, sure, Mexican, right? I am Mexican. I love my country. I love all that. But I'm sorry, but I love Mexico, but this is my country. So I had to stop using the excuse of I can't invest because no, I can't invest because of me. Like I had to take full ownership of that. So like I couldn't get loans when I first started because I didn't have a W-2 job because I quit my job. I couldn't do any of this stuff. And I didn't know about creative financing back then. I didn't know about any of the stuff that I know now. So it wasn't until I took extreme ownership of every decision that I had made, could I fix the problems that were in front of me. And then I remember asking the bank, Miss Regina, I'll never forget, I was sitting in front of her and I was like, she was like, no, we can't give you the loan, unfortunately, based on your file, blah, 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 blah. And I was like getting up and I turned around and I'm like, Miss Regina, why? Why can't you give me the loan? Like, no, I'm not going to walk out of here. I understand the answer is no, but you're going to have to tell me why, or I'm not leaving. I need it. Why? And she broke it down. She was like, okay, sure. In your file, it shows here that you don't have boom, 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 boom. I was like, so if I can fix that, I can get a loan. And she goes, yeah, of course. We need this, this, that, and the third. I said, great. So you got to bring the right credit score. Got it. you got to bring in, you got to have work history or W-2 job or some sort. I was like, do I have to, or can I bring in a partner? So if you can bring in a partner to satisfy something, great. Xavier, what's up? You got a job? I got the experience. Like it was like taking extreme ownership and then taking action on those reasons, which is why I've been able to grow and scale the way I have. But it's super powerful because like I said, and I'm not blaming either one of you. But earlier, where Xavier was like Latino investor, I'm like, yes, I'm definitely an investor and I'm definitely Latino, but I'm not just a Latino investor. I'm an investor that just so happens to be Latino, and that's important to me because I don't want people to be like celebrate me because I'm a Latino investor. I want people to celebrate because I'm an investor. Period. My skin color has nothing to do with this, right? Like it. I had to stop using it as a crutch because I would for so long. I'm like, oh, it's because I'm Hispanic, or it's because this, they won't give me a loan, man. And that was just an excuse because that's exactly what it was.
Well,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, well, also too, right? It's, everyone has a different background, right? Like you might be the same culture, but how you're raised at home looks a lot different too, right? So where I didn't know a whole lot about investing, doing things differently, buying rental properties, all those things. So I didn't know those things were actually a possibility growing up until I went to college. So until I started actually reading things. And I think where I was able to relate more to you, I was like, okay, there's someone out there that looks like me that is doing it. So then like, what is my excuse? Like, why can't I also do it? Which is the reason why I reached out to you. I was like, okay, hey, I need to figure out what is he doing? What is he not doing to kind of get me over to the hump? Because as soon as I reached out to you, I bought my first house hack. And then within 2 months of closing that, then I got my first rental property with you. So again, it's also important to just be able to give back as well. So yes, you're an investor that happens to be Latino, but a lot of people are going to be connecting with you for the side of because you're Latino as well.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I want to be a face where people can say, oh, he looks like me, so I can too. That's huge and massive. And I couldn't agree more with that. Like being that face where like you said, oh, he looks like me, so I can also do that. But what I'm trying to get at too is like, don't use it as a crutch of like where I used to be, where it's like, oh, I don't see anybody like me, so I can't invest. Right. Like that's an excuse versus, oh, finally I found someone that looks like me. So great, I can, but don't say I'm not going to invest until I find someone that looks like me. You know what I mean?
It's because it's easy for people to point elsewhere. Like it's hard to take full accountability and say like I didn't get these deals closed because I didn't do something right, or I didn't save up enough money. It's like it's so much difficult. I read that book from David Goggins, and it was really helpful because it framed my mind of looking at like when you like because you're gonna fuck up and you're gonna have these mistakes. Instead, internalize it and say, what can I do better? Even if you have 1% to grow and get better in, and 99% wasn't on you, at least that 1% the next time you know you're going to be in control of. And I think what that does is it propels you to be okay with the failure and then continue to move on because it removes, I think, that sting, which is important. A lot of people are still so afraid of failure, and it's because, well, it's someone else's fault, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. It's like, no, just take accountability and move on. You're going to be successful. And then worst case scenario, if you mess up, you learn a lesson that you can take in advance. But I think that's a poison for people is they don't want to learn the lesson. They don't want to look internally. They just want to point out to everyone else. And I think that's a byproduct of being human. It's easy to do that. And we always are looking for the easiest thing to do to survive and get by. And I think that's one of the reasons that people are in this position that they're in now. They don't want to take that accountability and look inward because it's hard.
Well, and one thing I'll add on to Nick is I think we're in an environment now, society where, I mean, people are going to be split on this, but a lot of it's thrown out to where like, it's okay. It's okay if you don't do this. It's okay if you don't do that. No, it's not okay. Like, it's okay to have people around you to tell you, dude, you're fucking up. Don't do that. Or, hey, watch out. Because like, I feel like we're so hypersensitive right now about certain things, certain topics, where it's like, it's hard to try to be authentic with one another and like warn them or kind of push them a little bit more because you want to be mindful emotionally and how things are going. But at the same time, it's like, man, I know you can do better. Why aren't you doing more?
You think Mike Tomlin gives a shit about how his players are feeling, and he's the most winning coach in like the last however many years with Pittsburgh? You think he gives a shit about like someone's feeling?
No.
Yeah, you don't want to be an overt asshole or like make it a point to try to drive people down. But some of the most impactful people in my life, I mean, we used to work for a guy X that used to fuck us up on the like every couple of weeks. I grew and learned more as a W-2 employee for that hard boss than I have with anybody else. And now anyone asks me, who do you respect the most in your career? It's that person. And it's all because they cared enough about me to not bullshit me and be upfront. I think this is the participation trophy thing that drives me nuts, man. It's like everyone gets a gold star, everyone gets like the win, but if everyone's getting it, then what's going to separate you from getting ahead? And I want to be ahead, and I want to be ahead because I want to work hard. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but don't expect the same things I'm going to have in life because you're not willing to put in the time and the effort.
100% agree with that. Yep, 100%.
Sorry, I got a little worked up on that one. The participation trophy thing pisses me off, dude. Because there's a competitive level, I think, to all of us, especially in entrepreneurship. Like, I'm looking at X, he buys a second house. I'm like, fuck that. I want to go buy a second house. And then I'm sure he's going to look at me and be like, man, fuck that. I want to go do this. And I'm hoping we're inspiring people to do the same. But that drives me nuts, man. Because I think society wise, it's kind of poisoning some of the youth that's coming up. It's going to really damage their mindset in 10 or 15 years. We just don't know about it yet because it's continuing to unfold.
I agree 100%. I know you guys wanted to get into partnerships, and I wanted to get into why I hate the BRRRR strategy. So where do you guys want to take this for your listeners? Listen to the end because we got some good stuff coming.
So I want to jump. We can do partnership first and then BRRRR, of why you hate the BRRRR. So did you jump into partnerships because you wanted to, or by necessity? Like, how did that get started?
I hate this answer, but yes and no. My wife says that to me all the time. Babe, no. Yeah, yes and no. I'm like, don't say that. But it fits here. So I wanted to get into partnerships, but it came out of a necessity. So I didn't want to wait to start investing because I knew the power of investing, but I didn't fulfill that W-2 checkbox. And I would have to have waited longer to invest more versus what was my strength. And my strength was knowing real estate here in Nashville could cash flow really, really high. So I strategically partnered with what I would call introverts and high income earners who I could trust. Maybe introverts isn't the right word, but like people smarter than me, I guess. I don't know what the right word that I'm looking for is there, but I was looking for people that were smarter than me with high income. And I was like, okay, so I need to find people that I can trust that are like that. And Xavier and a couple other my partners have been that way. And I've been able to take advantage of that by providing, in my opinion, more value to them, and then them the same thing, feeling like they're providing more value to me. They're providing a void that I don't have, which is like the W-2, the high income earner that's quickly bankable. And then I'm able to provide boots on the ground, high cash flow, high returns, which is why we've been able to work together. And then if we keep emotion out of the business and just make business decisions related to numbers, then we're going to be fine. And that's it, right? Like at the end of the day, I did it because I had to, but at the same time, I also wanted to. I don't think you should ever get into a partnership because you have to absolutely do it. I always tell people that ask me, like, how do you have a successful business partner or a business relationship? I always say you have to become a better business partner first. So are you worth working with? Are you the type of person that's going to put the business before like your own needs and wants and desires? Are you going to put the business first over your, fill in the blank reason? So become a better business partner if you want a good business partner.
When you were looking for partners, you talked about like you wanted to fill an opposing skill set or fill a void. Did you have like a buy box almost for the partnership personality traits, income that you were looking for?
Yeah, tall, dark, and handsome. And then Xavier just fit that bill.
Hey, you landed that one for sure, man.
I got that one. Dude, I always wonder, like, Xavier, how tall are you again?
About just shy of 6'4". Nick is taller than me, actually, which I hate.
Are you serious?
By like a quarter of an inch too. And like,
yeah,
I ain't gonna let him forget that shit.
Yeah. Hey, size matters. No, perfectly average. So
some would say too much.
Someone's gonna cut that out of the podcast. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't necessarily I guess it was kind of buy box. I've never put it that way. But it was like those opposing, like I wasn't going to get into partnership with someone that was just a friend. Friendship came out of the partnership. It wasn't we're friends and then we're partners. It's we're partners and then a friendship came out of that. Like for example, with Xavier, we knew each other, but I wouldn't call us like friends or best friends. Like we would call each other and talk emotions or anything. It was just like, yo, this deal cash flows. We both have common goals. Are you interested in doing this deal with me? You have this, I have this. Your task is this. My task is this. If someone drops the ball, or if the ball is dropped, we know what court it's in because your boots on the ground. You do this. we agreed on numbers and it just worked out, right? And then from there, naturally, a friendship did grow. But it wasn't like I was out strategically building out a buy box. It was just what were the things that complemented me that Xavier had, and vice versa. And then I look at other people always like, I wonder if that person would make a good partnership, or I wonder if that person would be a good partnership, just based on skill sets.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you like reference back to it. It doesn't have to be a friend. It could be someone you don't know as long as they fit your opposing skill sets. But then you have to be open to holding each other accountable to the partnership. And I think again, it goes back to our earlier point, like that shit's not easy. Like you have to have very difficult conversations around finances with someone that you don't know super well. And then continue to hold each other accountable, and they may hold you accountable and you may not like it in a partnership. But that, to your point, if you're not a good business partner, you're not going to find good business partners. And how did
It's
you,
hard, dude. It's hard to have those conversations. Like
yeah.
Xavier wants to buy forks for a cabin that has forks. Like, Xavier, the cabin has forks, dog. We're good. It's like there's only four, and I'm like, there's only four forks. Why do you need more?
Because
And
we
I'm like,
also
yeah,
home 8 people. So I'm just like, hey, we're short 4. Felipe's like, oh shit, yeah, okay, all right.
so who needs forks, right? Like, that's obviously a silly example, but it's true. Like, I'm like, dude, we need forks. We're good. I don't want to spend $30 on forks that we don't need. I'm like, I went up there with my family. I was like, oh crap, yeah, we're sharing forks. We need some forks.
You
So like,
eating
it's
off of
those
frisbee, sharing forks.
bro.
You're
It's
like, damn
like,
it.
so it makes sense, right? Like you got to be, and obviously that's a silly example, a real example, but it's a silly one. But like it comes to those things, right? And sometimes Xavier has to kind of also feel it out, like, okay, Felipe's right. Like we don't actually need, a Sony 50-inch TV that's LED or whatever. Like we can do with a regular. So it's just about like, can you make the best decision for the business to sustain, and is this actually going to add value? Like, what are we doing? Like we can't have a step that's broken because we're going to get sued. Right. But we don't need a new TV today because this one still kind of works. So, yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, I think it's important to say that because like my wife and I are managing our Airbnb, and talk about like a contentious point of our relationship right now. You try to tell your wife, or she tries to tell me, her husband, like, yeah, you're wrong, we shouldn't do this. And it's like it's on, it's fighting. I think it's almost easier if you don't know the person super well to be able to provide them that feedback, because it's like just
Yeah.
about the relationship in the business. And X and I, like, we're partners, we're buddies, but we don't have any deals together yet. And I'm wondering, does that ever progress? Do we just like each other too much to be able to buy something together? Who knows, because it's like, this is working out for
Are we
now.
just friends? That's all it is. We're just friends. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just best friends that have a podcast and talk 7 hours a week. But yeah, I think it's easier. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I don't know someone on that super deep personal level on the business side, you can kind of make it more of a transaction if you need to. And then it allows you to deliver that conversation a little bit easier. Because, dude, when my wife says to me I'm wrong about this house, I get fucking pissed. And then, like,
Yeah.
2 hours later, when I realize she's right, I'm even more angry because I realize I was wrong.
Yeah. Me and Xavier can get the same way, and then we can move on. But I can't remember, what was it recently, Xavier? Was I right or were you right? Or was I wrong? What was it recently where we came to a conclusion about,
Was it about
was
the
it
benches? Was it about the benches
was
and
it
like
about the benches?
about the benches and then buying some more expensive high grade chairs for the patio?
I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, you got to be able to have those conversations, and you got to be able to not, like, it's really hard to separate friendship and business, but it's a trait that you have to have if you want to be successful. Because me and Xavier have gone to Cancun together and played golf, but we've also had to have tough conversations about decisions about the cabins or certain things. So like, you have to be able to draw that line, like, without having to say, hey, this is a business conversation. Talk. Hey, this is a friendship. Like, you have to know which, and it's not like offensive. It's just what is the right thing to do with the business. And I think that this decision is right, or you, and can you explain why? Sure, here's the explanation. And that's hard as men. It's like, we don't want to have to explain ourselves. It's just, it is what it is, and do what I say. Oh, I know what it was. So Xavier wanted me to stop accepting guests on Airbnb immediately, because I would just, Airbnb guest, cool, I just accept it and move on. And Xavier was like, yo, like, let me vet these people or something. I'm like, dude, what do you got to vet? It's $1,000. Just say yes, whatever, move on. And we would go back and forth, and I'd be like, dude, if you're busy, like, I'm just gonna accept it. And then I think we came to a really easy conclusion. Xavier was like, hey, if I don't reply in the first 5 minutes, you can accept him. I was like, done. Like, that's simple. So it kind of that was like a business decision that we made. And I know that sounds silly, but sometimes those things are important to one or the other.
Well, it's super important too, because it's like setting up the expectation of what the relationship's going to look like. And if you guys can't have that conversation, I mean, it's as simple as accepting a guest, or it's as complicated as getting into another deal together. I mean, if you can't have those conversations, that partnership dies. It's okay for
Right.
partnerships to die, but if they don't need to, I think it's mutually beneficial to keep them going.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say before we move on to why Felipe hates the BRRRR method is what I learned about our partnership, Felipe, is it's very important that you choose what you truly feel passionate about, right? Don't always go 100% on every single topic. Pick and choose the things that you're passionate about pursuing, because then eventually your partner's going to know, like, hey, this means a lot more to him than it does to me. Like, I don't care. Sure, go ahead and buy that. But you're expecting the next time around when you make a pitch, then I'm going to be like, okay, cool, let's do it, versus me giving you a hard time about it. So it's always that kind of give and take as well in the partnership.
Sounds like a marriage. Jesus.
Dude, sometimes well, I mean, you have multiple loans and properties together. Like, yeah.
I was gonna say, in your guys' case, it's more expensive than a marriage.
Oh my gosh, so true.
All right, so why do you
Xavier, it would cost me more than my wife.
I know, especially because he's bougie. I was gonna say, if it's upgraded patio furniture, I know it's him trying to buy that shit.
Oh, dude, Xavier is so bougie, but it helps because I would have like plastic forks at the cabin,
yeah,
and Xavier would have the Taj Mahal forks.
Yep.
So we level each other.
Yeah. So why do you hate the BRRRR strategy? I feel like there's a book on it. You know.
Yeah, there is a book on it. In my opinion, as like, do you BRRRR? Do you BRRRR a lot?
Fuck no. I buy and hold everything, and I buy turnkey. I hate doing work to stuff. I am not technical. I don't like rehabs. I buy my shit.
Would you like refinance? Let's say you had 100,000 equity on a property. Would you refinance that property?
Only if I'm going from my 7 rate that I got right now to like a 5 or a 4. But no, normally I'd take a HELOC out. At least that's what I plan to do with my Redlands house, because my rate's like 3.5% or some shit.
So clearly you've been in my Instagram. So but this is why I hate the BRRRR strategy. And I think I've come down to the conclusion, because I like to simplify things, like why, like if you can't explain it to a child, like, do you really know? So I don't like the BRRRR strategy because, in my opinion, it is rooted in greed, right? So it's like, I want my money back now. I want what I invested back now. So it's a greed thing, in my opinion. Obviously, it's more technical than that, but that's how I would narrow it down. So been able to sell this book called the BRRRR strategy, and because it taps into people's greed. Oh, you can buy a house and you deserve your money back, and you deserve the house, and you deserve the cash flow, and you, where that's just not the truth. So that being said, in the BRRRR strategy, let's say that I have a $200,000 property and I refinance it, right? Not only have I restarted the loan, I could have a rate that's not as good, or it could be better. That's fine. Let's talk about it. You've also now given up your cash flow because you've restarted the loan. So your mortgage went up, meaning your cash flow went down. Yes, you have your money back, but you only got it at 70 or 75%, sometimes even less. So you've given away your equity at a discount. You've restarted your loan. Your cash flow is down. You've literally sold off your wealth at a 30%, 20, 30% discount. You owe money the moment that you refinance. The next month, you owe the bank some money. The banks love a refinance. And I could go on and on and on. But the only thing the BRRRR does is it gives you back your money, or 80% of it, not even all of it, sometimes even less. So, in my opinion, I don't like the refinance strategy because people don't ever get to truthfully or truly create wealth, there is a time and place for a refinance, right? I'll leave that end at the bottom. What I prefer people to do is get a line of credit on their equity, so they have access to the same amount of money without pulling it out, without having to pay interest on the money until you use it. And you're obviously not going to use it on the property that doesn't cash flow. So it has to meet the parameters of your investing, right? So you invest in a property with a line of credit. The property needs to sustain the debt of the property, but also the debt of the line of credit. And then you can just keep building like that. And if you add off-market deals to that, if you can layer up and get better and better deals. But I think the refinance strategy on single family homes is probably one of the worst strategies that you can do, on apartment complexes and things like that. I think it's a great strategy. Okay, so Felipe explained. On single family homes, they are comped based on its surroundings. Doesn't matter how, if I put gold in that house, If the properties around it are not sustaining that evaluation, then you're susceptible to that, the market. But in an apartment complex, you could be in the hood, but if rents are $7,000, that property has value. So you can force appreciation, take out non-taxable equity out, right, in a refinance. That makes sense. But don't cash out refinance single family homes.
So what type of terms are you getting on these? Are you doing like strictly HELOCs? Or are you doing like just a different line of credit through banks? What type of terms are you getting?
So great question, but the question's irrelevant. So I'm not going to answer it because you don't pay for it. Your tenants pay for it. You get a 10%, a 7%, a 5-year, a 20 or 30, doesn't matter. You're not paying for it. Your tenants are, and you're not going to buy another asset that doesn't cash flow sustaining those terms. So people are like, oh, well, my terms are not as good. Why do you care? You're not paying for it. So you're not going to use that line unless the property makes sense. So even if you have it or if you have it with not great terms, but you're going to run analysis on properties based on that. You know, the saying renting is 100% interest versus buying. Yep. The same thing with a refinance. The moment you take out all the money, that's 100% you owe interest on every single dollar. On a line of credit, you own interest only on what you use strategically leveraged against another asset.
So then do you go in and like, let's say you, just for like simple math, you buy a house that's 500 and then you renovate and do all the work you want to, now it's worth 750. Do you immediately try to get that difference and then start looking for other deals, or do you find a deal, then look at your portfolio?
I put a line of credit on that equity, which is going to be the same amount as the refi. So let's say me and you went into the bank, exact same scenario, 500 and 500, 750 and 750. You got to cash out refinance the next month. You have to pay interest on that loan. Whether you have a deal to invest that money or not, you're paying interest. Felipe, on the other hand, has access to that same amount of capital, but I don't have to deploy it or pay interest until I use it. And I'm only going to pay interest on the deposit that I put on, the down payment that I put on that next asset. Now that next asset has to cover its cost, cash flow, and pay off the line of credit. And it happens all the time. So that's why I like the line of credit strategy better, but you're not going to buy a book called Line of Credit. But you're going to buy a book based on BRRRR that says that's got BRRRR on it, right? So that's why I don't think.
So I have more questions. X, you good?
Yeah,
you
of course.
Okay, cool. Because I have a lot of equity sitting in a house in Redlands, and then after I build my 2.2 ADU unit here, I'm gonna have like $600,000 equity in this San Diego house.
Good for you.
Do you go out and like you use what you need? So let's say I could get $400,000 of a line of credit after I build this unit. What would you suggest? You suggest going out and finding a deal and then that's like trying to use all of it, or you just start hitting the pavement for anything that you can find and then pulling out what you need?
Yeah, so I'm going to get as much equity or line of credit equity that I can. So I'm going to, how much do you want? The max. Great. So I have the max on my line of credit. And then I'm going to find assets that will sustain the payment of the line of credit based on how much they're asking for. So if the asset's like a $200,000 property like Xavier and I have that pumps out $1,400 a month in cash flow, and I know that $400 goes to a line of credit, $1,000 can go to me, or the smart play would be all of it goes to a line of credit to keep paying it down so that you can continue to buy, and this will always go up and down. I've built a $10 million portfolio on a $180,000 line of credit. Don't believe me? Ask Xavier. He's been there from the beginning. Like I have one line of credit that's 150,000. Now I have $500,000, but when I started, it was a $150,000 line of credit. I would put $20,000, buy a rental, 20,000, buy a rental, cash flow, pay off line of credit, back and forth, back and forth. When you pay, but let me ask you this, Nick. When you pay back the refinance, who are you paying?
The bank.
When you're paying back a line of credit, who are you paying?
Technically me.
You are paying you,
right?
Which is why you're able to reuse it over and over and over again. This is how you continue to build back. In a refinance, let's say you have $100,000 worth of equity, you put down 3 or 4 payments of 20% down, your money is gone. You can never reuse that again. With a line of credit, you use that, you pay it off, and then you do it again. And if you have a W-2 job like you guys do, then you can not only put the cash flow towards the line of credit, you can also put some of your W-2 money. So you can keep investing over and over and over.
So that's interesting. So do you do it with one bank, and then now do you have a relationship that's so strong with that bank, they're going to give Felipe whatever he wants when he walks in the front door?
Basically, yeah. I can close deals 2 weeks, a week and a half. I literally got an email while we're sitting here where this is new to me. Hey, we got closing costs included in everything in your loan. Sent it over. We're ready to close on Monday. What do you need? Closing costs, everything's in the loan.
So I think that's part of it too, that you don't really get, because the refinance takes time. You have to qualify for it too. I think that's part of the difficulty with it, versus because I applied for a HELOC on my Redlands house and ended up using a 401k loan because the percentages were so much better and I could repay that one faster. But I want the HELOC on the Redlands house because to access that equity, I don't want to lose my 3.5% interest rate. But then I also don't want to sell the place because it's making me, after I move out, like $1,700 a month. So it's like, I want both. And yeah, I might pay 10% interest, but to your point, it's like the same reason I didn't give a damn about paying 7% interest on 1.45 million in this house. It's because I'm not paying it. The Airbnb guests are paying it. So like,
The
who really
Airbnb
gives a shit at the
thing,
end of the day?
that's exactly right. And what's cool about the line of credit strategy is so many more things that we haven't talked about. But one of the really cool things is you don't have to restart your loan. So let's say you have a $200,000 property and the loan is at 150. So you get $40,000 in line of credit. You use it, but this loan is still getting paid down of the 150, not the 200 where a cash out refinance. You have to start over, right? So you're able to use the equity in a refinance, but you got to start the loan over. Whereas with the line of credit, you're still paying it down here and you're still able to use the same equity. And then what's really cool is you go back every year and you ask for an extension on your line of credit. Every year, your line of credit gets bigger and bigger.
And that's that relationship piece with the bank that helps too.
You know,
That's some good
I
shit
just,
right
I
there.
just, I just think the line of credit is really stupid, or the BRRRR strategy is really stupid when it comes to single family homes. Like, excuse
Yeah.
my language, and I actually have a lot of mentors that use the mess out of it and use it correctly and do it really well. But for me, I'm like, long term, you're gonna wish that you would. So, like 20 years down the road, if you're still refinancing, you're not gonna own any of those properties, right? You're just, in my opinion, you're just a glorified property manager for the bank because you own 90% or 90% of the rental is owned by the bank. Who really owns that asset?
Well, and it's interesting you say that too, because I'm not going to want to refinance my loan amount in the San Diego house if rates go up. I'm only going to want to refinance if they go down to like 5%. And then I'm getting just even more cash flow to then apply to a line of credit. What you can also do, I'm thinking about like just math wise, you could do the Dave Ramsey waterfall, or what is it called? Avalanche approach. You can like use the cash flow from 3 or 4 units all at once to pay off that loan. Now you have a larger allotment. Now you have more lines of credit. You can pull on more properties. You do it again, you apply all that cash flow. So then you can just keep recycling that money over and over again at like a super high rate.
Now let me tell you where a refinance does make sense, because I will refinance all of my portfolio and the next time rates go down. So let me explain this part. So right now I'm buying heavily assets, 7%, 8%. I'm buying everything I can get my hands on, because once rates go back down, everyone is going to flood the market, right? Everyone's going to flood the market and my asset value is going to go up. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, listen hard, because this is really important. I'm about to make everyone millions of dollars. I'm going to buy at high interest, but still cash flow. So what I'm going to do is when interest rates go down and everyone floods the market again, my property value is going to go up. Let's say it just doubles for easy math. It doubles in price, or it doubles in value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Xavier, because he's smarter than me. I'm going to say, Xavier, how much of this property can I cash out, refinance, but keep my mortgage the same? So there's going to be a mathematical equation there where Xavier is going to do some smart shit on Excel and be like, you can cash out, refinance 60% of your equity and your mortgage will only move by a little bit. So I'm still cash flowing really, really high, but I'm able to refinance that amount. And I'm going to do that for my whole portfolio on the next cycle, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it doesn't matter. For example, Xavier and I have a property here in Nashville. Let's say that it doubles in value because of what's going on out here. And after the podcast, I'll show you guys. And this is an exit outside of the property that we own. Let's say that property doubles in value. Xavier and I can make an educated decision in the next 2 to 3 years and say, hey, our mortgage right now is $1,500 and our rent is $3,000. So Xavier, how much equity can we take out, cash out, refinance, where the mortgage stays the same? So he'll do, like I said, some math equation. He'll figure that out, and he'll say we can cash out 200 grand because the property is worth 400. Great. Does our mortgage stay the same? Yes. Does the cash flow stay the same? Yes. Does the asset sustain? Yes. Great. Let's pay ourselves out 100 G's each. And that's what's going to happen on the back end of this recession, correction, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be able to do that to all of my properties. The only difference is I'm not going to do it to move the mortgage payment up or restart basically the dead clock. It's just how much equity do I have, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, that's why I tell people too, like everyone's obsessed with hitting home runs. And I think that's where like the social media aspect of investing kind of fucks up. Like everyone wants to hit the home run. I want to be Felipe. I want to own $10 million in real estate, whatever. I want 79 doors. Like buy a base hit. And then in 3 or 4 years, when the conditions change, now you have a home run. Because I bought my house hack. I was making like $13 a month living there. But Craig, when he bought his first house hack, was making $1,000 a month. And everyone holds themselves to this unrealistic expectation. But now 2.5 years down the line, when I move out of this place, I'm going to be $1,700 richer a month. So that is a home run to me because my initial investment in that house was $25,000 in partnership with my wife. So I think that's an issue too. When rates, go up, it's going to shrink your cash flow. It's going to make margins tighter. But when everything drops back down, which it eventually will, you're going to then be able to be in a better position and have more assets than anybody else who was like, oh, it only makes $150 a month, so I'm not going to buy it. Well, 2 years later, it's going to make $500-$600 a month. Because also when your rates go down, your prices go up, rents typically follow right behind it because people buy houses and then they need to rent them out. And so they're renting them out at a higher rate. And it just continues to snowball from there.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, you ready for the would you rather question, Felipe? Or do you want to drop any other knowledge bombs on our audience?
I have a lot of knowledge bombs. If they follow me on Instagram at Felipe Mejia REI, I'm sure to be in the show notes. I'll give them more bombs there. But yeah, go ahead. Let's go. Would you rather? Oh my gosh, this is nervous.
We're gonna keep it PG. Have some non-PG ones later. But would you rather be able to talk to animals that are on land, animals that are in the sea, or animals that fly? You cannot get all of them. You can only choose one. So land, sea, or air. Who are you talking to?
I would go to animals in the sea because it's the least explored. So I would ask them, Craig, I would go with the sea. Is there really mermaids? What's going on? Is there Atlantis? Do I look like the guy from Black Panther? I'm just kidding.
They're like, yeah, dude, you sick fuck. So we keep away from all you guys now. All you land people, we have to stay away.
Oh, you land people. That's a good question.
I'm doing the same, dude. I'm going whale watching, and then I'm gonna try to talk to a whale because, they see the deep sea squids, and they're down there at the crazy depths and stuff like that. Like that's who I want to know.
All right, Nick. So I'm not getting off this podcast, and I'm going to say some crazy, crazy crap if you don't try to talk to a whale right now in your camera, in your mic.
Oh, dude, no, I got that little chart in my background. You can't see it. The more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out, bro. I'd do it.
That's so funny.
It's actually
Xavier,
Xavier,
your
too.
turn.
No,
Xavier,
I was gonna say, I would not choose water animals. I would choose land 100% with the sole purpose of don't fucking kill me. All right. I just want to walk everywhere and just don't kill me.
Actually, that's a really good idea.
That's all it is.
The lion, like in Africa, that would. Oh,
yeah.
Dude, I never
go on
thought of
safari. Just elephants don't stomp on me, please.
Hey.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Then they're all fucked up too. They're like, oh, dude, that guy's super chill. I'm not gonna run him.
Do you want to ride on me? Do you want to ride like a lion? You see Xavier going across the safari in a lion,
all majestically with his shoulders all broad, just like his hair is all his fucking perfectly manicured hair. No, it would mess up his hair.
Podcast is over. Yeah, you're right. For you guys that are listening, I'm sorry. Podcast is over.
Or you're welcome.
Or you're welcome.
Depending.
Because I think about that imagery every night. So at least our guest now.
All right. So looks like my wife's calling.
Yeah.
Oh
right.
man.
All right. So Felipe, where should our guests find out more about you?
Dude, Instagram's the best place. Felipe Mejia REI. Anybody send me a DM, I try to get back to them as good as possible. That's where you can connect.
Yeah. And make sure you guys are looking back at the posts to make sure that it's not one of those spam accounts that Felipe has that he has to report and everything that's got like 90 posts in the last 2 days. Just scroll down a little bit, make sure it's authentic, because then you can hit him up and see if he can drop you back a line.
So,
yep. Felipe, thanks for jumping on, man. Appreciate your knowledge, your time. So I'm sure that our listeners are going to get a lot of value from the podcast. So thanks for jumping on, man.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, guys. You guys are doing something awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. That was Felipe Mejia. Holy shit, man. There's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, we got into a little bit of like the, socioeconomic situation in our world. We got a little bit into some of like the fun things that are happening in our world too. Shoot, what else, X? What did we talk about?
Yeah, we also talked about his view on partnerships and when he deemed it was essentially necessary or him wanting to bring other people on, right? So he walks through the criteria of like what he's essentially his buy box, but for partners of what he's looking for. right? Someone that are W-2 high income earners, someone he works well with, someone that also complements either like his skill set or has the opposite skill set. So making sure like you make a better team overall. So it was kind of cool hearing about that. Of course, I'm familiar with it because him and I talk about it all the time. Him and I are partners too. And I loved going into because we have no problem digging into like the things that we're working with in our partnership because it's not all perfect. There's some times where like we're trying to figure our own stuff out, and every partnership is not going to be perfect. But what's important is that you keep the business in mind when making your decisions and not being so emotional about certain things.
Yeah, and I think that's where I like was really vibing with Felipe today. Like that authenticity that he shared with us, it seems like that's just like him all the time, 100%. And it's like almost you got to respect that because he's not going to try to put on a face or play a game to like get in your head and make the decision that he wants to make at the end of the day. Like he's objectively going to say, "This is what I believe. Convince me otherwise." You convince him otherwise, he's like, "You're right. Let's pick up. Let's move on." So I really respect that, and I think it's a trait a lot of people don't have because they're trying to fit this mold or do what they need to do to make these people happy. And Felipe's like, "Dude, I'm living my life. I'm trying to be me."
Yeah, man. And I'll make a plug for him because it's something that when we first kind of kicked it off, he was like, "Hey man, I'm just here to talk to you guys, provide as much content and knowledge for your guests." He was my first mentor when I first got started, and he also has an own mastermind as well too. So that'll be on the show notes for you guys to check out. But again, really great guy. Has a great understanding of the real estate world and definitely unique ways to be able to acquire property as well. But yeah, if you guys are interested in learning more about him, definitely give him a follow.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are your W2 amigos. We do have a call to action for you guys today. If you can share this episode with someone that needs to learn more about partnerships or more about how to continue to scale and trust themselves, please do so. And then also leave us a review, an honest rating and review on the podcast, and help us grow and start to really see if we can impact other investors and other people that want to hear a little bit more. I know this is off our beaten W2 path, but Felipe was someone we just had to get on to make sure that you guys heard the goal that he has. If you guys want to reach out to us, get a hold of us at the W2 Amigos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you want to get a hold of me, hit me up at the Five Family on Instagram and TikTok. And if you're looking for anything in the Southern California market in terms of housing, let me know.
Yep, and you can find me at XavierMarin _ at Instagram and TikTok. We will talk to you guys in the next episode.
Yes, X, we're also going to ask that you change your handle to tall, dark, and handsome based on Felipe's comments today. So just letting you know, the listeners might need to switch it up after next week.
Should I really do that? Does that sound? Do you think I'm gonna be like sound like super just full of myself? Yeah, it's gonna sound that way. Do I care? I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Nah, dude, you're tall, dark, and handsome.
I'm
All
like
right, guys.
I'm like
Well,
answering all my own questions right now in the podcast.
I was trying to cut you off so that you wouldn't be able to like retort. Tall, dark, and handsome signing off here. We'll talk to you guys next week.